On today's episode of Forward Progress, I talk with Shane Dierking, defensive coordinator at North Central College in Naperville, Illinois. Coach Dierking just finished his fifth season leading the defense, and he's been a part of the last four national championships, winning in 2019 and 2022. He talks about how to keep players hungry, the importance of understanding your teammates, and how to win national championships. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some Forward Progress. What's going on, Shane? Thanks for jumping on today, man. How's everything going?
It's going great, Nubis. Appreciate you having me on. We're kind of in a transition phase right now, moving recruiting to spring ball. We got spring break next week, and then we hit the ground running that Tuesday once we get back. So super excited to get back on the field with these guys and see what this 24 season has in store for us.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys jump right into practice that Tuesday after you get back. So I assume you guys have been doing install meetings and things like that leading up to spring break.
Yeah, slowly, especially with our online things. We have Just Play where we can send those installs to the guys. But the weight room development was the most important thing, these last 2 months, because we go up till December, right before Christmas, and then we give those kids a break. They come back. So we really only have 8 weeks, to hit that off season, in the weight room with our strength and conditioning. Just tested this Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday up in the weight room. Finishing out the week strong and then transitioning, getting back to football.
Yeah, right. And then you guys will go, when will you guys be done with classes? When are they done with school and things like that?
So they're done with school. We made the transition from trimesters to semesters 4 years ago. So we're pretty much on the same schedule as everybody else. We get out that first week of May, but we're actually doing a trip overseas with our team this year. First time since 2019. So we always try to do it every 3 years. But COVID, put a pause on that. So we're getting back into that. We're going over to Ireland, with like 50 guys. So really looking forward to that. And my mom, most of her cousins are still in Ireland. So I'm gonna catch up with some old family. So
yeah, it's like a double dose for you.
Yeah,
a little trip home type of thing.
Awesome.
See some people. That's good.
And hopefully we play some good football and don't embarrass ourselves.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys will be all right. We did the Spain trip a couple years ago, and that was a good time. That's a great experience for guys to get out there, and how many guys have never left the country before, right? So it'll be a first time for a lot of these guys to see different part of the world. So it's always good to get those experiences in. So and I think I was actually just talking to Coach Rooker over at North Park, and they're heading to Italy this year as well.
Oh, awesome.
So I think a couple other teams might be doing that. So
CCIW taking Europe by storm.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's all. I mean, I feel like I know when we went, Augustana was in Germany the same year. So I think a lot of teams in the conference try and get that going and use that to their advantage, get that extra practice in, get those extra reps. Now, when you go, do you guys how's it spread? Will a majority of your starters be going? Is it just a complete mix of guys, or how do you guys break that up?
It's a complete mix of guys. There's some position groups, where it's like, boom, we got, our 2 or 3 starters. And then it's, all freshmen in another position group, or, it's a little bit more defensive heavy, where we had some guys that are on our defense now that used to play like running back or receiver that may have to go both ways. So it's gonna be a mix. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna have our work cut out for us, but at the end of the day, it's really for the experience for the young men these guys pour so much into football, pour so much into academics. They don't have the time, to be able to do study abroad opportunities. And it's all about the experience and, team building, is and just being able to spend time with our guys outside of football is what I'm looking forward to most. They get tired of hearing me for 15 weeks.
Without a doubt. It's really a good chance they kind of see you as a real human being.
Mm-hmm.
They see you outside of just the elements of being on the practice field or in the meeting rooms and things like that. I mean, it's good because then you let your guard down a little and you're there with them 24/7. So they just get to see you. You get to see them as regular people. They see you as a regular person. So it definitely is definitely a great experience for guys to do that. And it's good for, like you said, that team building aspect, I think, is huge. So now for you guys with your roster, a predominant number of your guys are from the Chicagoland area. How much are you working with your guys, or how much are you able to see your guys over the summer? I know a lot of guys probably get back to campus to lift. Is that kind of what you guys are able to are you able to get a good group of guys back to work throughout that summer period, or how's it work for you guys?
So looking at our roster, it's right at about like 84% are Illinois guys.
Hmm.
And then if you break up that 84% of those guys, I'd say 80% of them are within 2 hours.
Yeah.
So that's a major advantage. And that's one of the things that we harp on within recruiting. Like, we want to win football games in December, right, with tough Chicagoland kids. We want to run the ball, stop the
Right.
run, win the turnover battle, and be tougher, because
Right.
you never know, in December it could be snowing sideways or 0 degrees, and
Yeah. Yeah. That
the air raid.
Wartburg game did not look warm. That
Yeah,
game looked really, really cold. I was like, you
yeah,
know
the
what?
teams that are into the air raid and chucking it
Yeah,
5 times a game, that may not win a game for you in December.
no doubt.
But in regards to the summer, a lot of player led things. Our guys go every Wednesday and Sunday from May to August. Field is open for them. They do O-line, D-line school. The skill guys do individual, and then they also do player led 7-on-7. So you can really tell how good you're going to be.
Yeah.
When you get a report of how many guys are there.
Hmm. Yeah. Right.
When you've got 60, 70 guys showing up in the summer, shoot, you're going to be pretty good, because those
Right.
guys are bought in,
Right.
and on the other hand, right, if those numbers are down, it's, hey, this senior group needs to pick it up, because
Right.
that's really where you've seen a transition, is for us being a player-led program. Like, if your seniors aren't leading the way, in every single aspect of the program, you're going to have a tough time, winning football games, especially those close games in the fourth quarter, and especially
Yeah.
those games in the playoffs. So
Right.
that's the summer is such, at the Division III level, where you can't be hands-on, as coaches. It's so important, for our players to be holding each other accountable,
Yeah.
during that 3-month stretch.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to that old adage of good teams are coach led teams, great teams are player led teams type of deal there.
Amen. Yep.
So, so you just finished, this was your 5th full season as a defensive coordinator. I know you got back in 2018, but with the COVID year,
Yeah.
5 full seasons as the DC there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
With obviously, a tremendous amount of success, 4 straight national championship appearances, 2 wins with the 19 and 22 championship games. The big question, that I always wonder for programs that are in that type of environment is, how do you keep your players hungry year after year? Because I mean, I saw for the past 3 years coaching going against your program, and there's not a let off. Like, those guys were always, you could tell they were locked in, they were driven, they were hungry. It wasn't like a team that you would look at that team and say they've never won a national championship, but they know they could do it this year. But they were
Mhm.
coming off of like their 3rd straight deal. How do you keep those guys so hungry as a program, keeping them bought in year after year?
Yeah, I think really controlling what we can control, right? Our attitude, our effort, and our response. And every year is different. And every year we dedicate that season to our seniors. And our guys play so hard, right? Because they love their seniors, and it's all about those guys, right? So that group changes every single year.
Right.
And if you're one of those guys who've worked their tails off, right, for the last 3 years, and now it's your senior year, like, now it's your time to be rewarded.
Yeah.
But with, every week, right? And a lot of it sounds like coach speak, but once you get your guys to think in this mindset, like, every single week we are going to prepare like we're playing in the national championship. And if we do that for 14 weeks, and we have that mindset from a preparation standpoint, from a practice standpoint, from film review to the weight room, we're going to end up there, and then in that national championship game, we're going to have a pretty good chance to win that, because we've done it 14 times.
Right.
So it's no surprise. We don't have to do anything different, because
Yeah.
we've done it 14 times already. So once you get your players, in that mindset, and living in the moment and not looking at results, and just, hey, this process, right, it works if you have that mindset. But they want to leave a legacy. Every senior
Yeah.
class wants to leave a legacy and leave the program in a better place than they found it.
Yeah.
And, we just graduated the winningest senior class in history.
Right.
And seniors before them, we're the winningest class in senior.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
And it
right.
just like keeps going.
Yeah. And
But
now there's almost that pride effect where no one wants to be that team that or that
yeah,
group of seniors where, hey, we didn't hold up our end of the bargain, and it falls on their shoulders probably to
exactly.
get that type of mindset.
Yeah, and one of the things is, hey, North Central, hadn't done it, until 2019. So,
Right.
hey, are we a flash in the pan? There's so many programs who have made it to the Stag Bowl, right, once or twice and never been back again,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Where you saw, the run of Mount Union, the
Hmm.
run of Whitewater, it's so much harder to do it year in and year out and year in and year out. So that's what we say, like, are we a flash in the pan or are we the new standard?
Yeah, right.
We have that choice every single day. When you focus on the minute details and the little things, that's going to put you back in the Stag Bowl, in the long run.
Yeah, yeah. And then, you kind of touched on it, not letting them not looking at the results, right? Trying to be process oriented as opposed to results oriented. But when you're sitting there as a program that's kind of newer in in that realm of one of those top level programs, like you said, Whitewater and Mount Union had that, 10, 15, 20-year stretch where they kind of built that up. You guys are kind of relatively new, so to speak, in terms of being in that spotlight. How have you managed to keep those kids focusing on the process and not focusing on the result and not getting into that mindset of, well, we've been there before, or we got to, it's about, we want to win this game or we're trying to get this many points or whatever. But instead of thinking that way, they're thinking, we got to just be the best that we're capable of being and moving forward every single day. How do you fight that? I don't know if it's a battle that you have to fight every day, but how do you deal with that every day?
Yeah, I think it's a battle every single day. I mean, complacency is everywhere.
Yeah.
And especially when, you're successful and you're an 18 to 22-year-old kid, like your parents are telling you, your friends are telling you, your family's telling you how good you are. And that's where, the coaching and your senior leadership, comes into play and has to humble those guys every single day.
Hmm.
Like you're showing up every day and you're earning it and you're getting better or you're getting worse.
Yeah.
And we need to just keep stacking days and having that moment mindset instead of looking down the road and looking at, hey, results and stats and all this stuff. If we just put our best foot forward and we keep growing, right, as a unit, as a team, we're going to get to where we want to get to. But that complacency, it's one of those things when freshmen come in now, it's hard because, they come in and already think they're elite because they're a part of an elite program.
Right.
It's like, you got to earn your stripes with us.
Yeah.
And that's something that you have to, it's a battle every single day.
For sure. What would you say you guys do specifically to help develop that senior leadership? Because obviously that's kind of been a theme up to this point. It's the leaning on those guys the most. What are some things you do to make sure those guys know how to lead, they're leading in the right way, et cetera? Do you guys have like leadership classes and things like that in the off season? What are some things you do with them?
Yeah. So during the season, we meet twice a week. And it's on a topic outside of football, right? And it would have, a key word for the day. Let's say it's, grit, adversity, love, intuition. And really we give our guys a curriculum, right, where they're reading excerpts and quotes. And we want our guys to talk about things outside of football and their life experiences. And that's when you really get to dive into and really understand about your teammates when they're talking about things outside of football. So you talk about heart and playing for each other. Like if you just have 18 to 22-year-old guys and they're in a room, they're going to be talking about, football, Madden, girls, like we put them in a position to kind of force them out of their comfort zone
Mm-hmm.
and talk about their lives and what makes them tick and what's their why. And when you've been a part of those meetings for 3-4 years and we always revert back to, we dedicate every season to our seniors, right? They take ownership because now it's their time to shine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I think Coach Spencer's done a great job of, is always making it about the seniors. And every week we have an honorary captain for that week, that's a senior, right? That deserves it.
Yep.
So I think it's just when our kids talk about, hey, why do you play so hard? It's always got to go back to the seniors. And every single season is unique because it's about this unique senior class.
Yeah, right. That way, it's a good way of of changing the focus every year, so it's not just the same goals over again. Like, yeah, you want to win conference, you want to go to the national championship, but really for you guys, it sounds like our goal is to make sure that we do everything for these seniors so that they have the best legacy when they leave. So every year it's a little bit different in terms of what they're trying to work for, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So let's talk. You've been with this program as a player and as a coach for quite some time. You started you played there from 2010 to 2013. Is that correct? Do I have the years correct there?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so played there from 2010 to 2013. If I'm not mistaken, your senior year, you guys got to the semifinals, fell just a little bit short of getting there. After that, you got into the coaching realm as a GA there. Left for a little bit, came back. Throughout that time, North Central was knocking on the door, right? They were getting to the point as a player, you got really close to getting to the national championship. Your first year back as a coach, you guys went to the second round before getting knocked out. Then your second year as a defensive coordinator, you guys finally broke the wall. You broke that ceiling and win your first national championship in 2019. What was it that finally helped you guys get over that hump, so to speak? Because the program had been building and had been knocking on the door and putting itself in position. What changed that year or building up to that year? How'd you guys get through that ceiling and finally bring home the championship, which has now led to obviously a lot more success?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, my senior year, 2013, we lost to Mount Union 41-40 in the semifinals, right? And that was the closest we'd ever gotten. But then we took some steps back, right? In 2014 and 2015, we didn't win a conference title, and we didn't make the playoffs, right? And then got it back on track in 16. But then the thing about North Central is they always lost, except for that 1 year in the second round. We couldn't get over that hump.
Right.
And it took a really, really special group. And that group really came together. I believe it was week 5. We played against Wheaton College, and they played harder. They played more physical. They played more sound, and they played better team football. And what we did that Sunday, instead of breaking up into O&D and then breaking up into position meetings, with our film grades, is, Coach Thorne had us all sitting in the same room, and we watched every single play of that game. And some of those guys saw their teammates loafing, not giving 100% effort, right? Not doing their jobs, missing assignments and playing sloppy football. So that was really eye-opening for some of the guys that, hey, we're just focused on our offense. We're just focused on our defense. When you do that in a public setting, in a game where, everybody's heartbroken, like that ignited those guys. And they're like, never again, right, will I be the guy on film being called out for lack of effort, right, not being prepared. So once we hit the ground, like after that game, like there was a new fire to those guys, and it was driven by a great senior class, and the quarterback being the best player.
Yeah, that was Brock Rudder, right? That was his year, right?
Brock Rudder, yeah. Gagliardi winner, unbelievable leader. And once we went to that second round playoff game, like Brock Rudder, like he was not going to let us lose. And it was one of those special moments where you're with an athlete and you're like, he's different than everybody else I've been a part of or I've been around.
Right.
And then once we won that shootout against Mount Union, that was the first time Mount Union lost before the semis, in 25 years. And once our kids accomplished that, like there was no stopping them.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of frustrating at times after that in the playoffs, because I was like, no, you guys don't get it. Like if we don't get this right, but like they just had an unwavering confidence about them that they could do anything.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like eerie. It was like, damn, these like they think they could be like the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. It's one of those things when you accomplish something that nobody believes you can accomplish as a group, not just as an individual.
Yeah.
Like it just set those guys on fire, and it really propelled us right into the stretch for the next few years.
Yeah, right. And it's obviously you guys have been able to carry that with you, and now it's I got to imagine your guys walk out there and it's the expectation that, hey, we got to play on that level because that's where we're going to be. And they believe that they can actually do it. It's not just, hey, we have to play at that level to get there. It's we've been there, we know what it looks like, and we got to make sure we maintain it. So that's awesome. Now, if I remember correctly, I heard somewhere you talking about your first run when you guys went in 19, that you almost struggled to enjoy it because of the stress of it and going through it, and your quick turnaround times from semifinal to getting down to Texas, I believe it was that year.
Mhm.
And it was such a whirlwind that you almost didn't enjoy it. Well, now you've been through it a few more times, which is awesome. Not a lot of
Yeah.
guys, some guys get there once and never get back, like you said, but you've had the ability to get back there a few times in a row here. So how has your experience changed through those past few years, and how has your approach, more importantly, changed through those years? What have you learned from that first year, second year, third year that you keep applying, that you keep building? Obviously, it worked the first year, but you're always trying to evaluate and change. How have you changed?
No, it's a great point. The national championship, we're the only level of football that has a shortened week, right, to play in the national championship.
Yeah.
So you get back, if you were on the road in the semifinals at some point, Sunday morning or hopefully Saturday night, and then you're on a flight Tuesday at about 6. So it's a get up and go, no time to pat yourself on the back. Like, hey, we're not satisfied that we've gotten there, right? We
Right.
need to prepare and we need to go win.
Right.
In a shortened, game planning, timetable. So for us, right, really what I've learned is like you got to get like the printers going, you got to make sure all the technology, like, basically what I want to do is like bring our office there.
Yeah.
Then you're working out of like hotel conference rooms, and that's
Right.
that's one of the most difficult things. And then it's really focusing on, hey, it doesn't matter, right, how much time we spend as a staff coming up with new things. What's gotten here, right, is being brilliant at the basics,
Yeah.
right? And we need to be, right, more assignment sound, right? We need to be better, right, with block destruction, tackling, right, and not giving up explosive plays. That's investing in that and being able to spend time with our players when they're in a new environment. There's a whole lot of things going on that can distract them, right?
Hmm.
So just spending as much time with our players is one of the things that I've realized throughout the years is more important than me and the DBs coaches trying to come up with, a brand new sub package to use on 3rd and long.
Sure. Sure.
And it's one of those things like the fundamentals over scheme at that point in the year. Like just keep doing and drilling what got you here.
Yeah.
And for us, like I said, a lot of the things are kind of, the technology. And like the first year we went there, like we didn't have a printer. So we were like printing at the hotel printer, and it was like a dollar a page.
Oh man.
Like we just like took the receipts and gave them to our athletic director, and we're like, sorry.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. Yeah.
it was like,
Hey. Hey, at least here's this championship trophy to hold it
yeah,
down as a
yeah.
paperweight, right?
I was
At
like,
least
oh,
that kind
thank
of
God we
fun. Yeah,
won.
right. Thank God,
Thank God
exactly.
we won.
Right. If we
Yeah,
didn't win that game, things might be a little different, right?
yeah, yeah.
That's no, that's interesting. You don't those are definitely things you probably don't think about going
Mhm.
into it, right? You're going in, you're like, holy shit, we're playing for a national championship game.
Yeah, yeah,
It's so easy to just get wrapped up in that, and then you lose
yeah,
like, oh man, we still have to run an operation here. We have
yeah,
weekly things that we have to take care of. So
yeah,
I imagine now you guys are probably a little bit more efficient at getting all that stuff organized and going together there.
yeah. I've got a
Well,
lot of great young assistants who handle the technology so I don't screw it up. But
yeah, right.
yeah, that's the biggest thing with our guys is, they can look at it like a bowl game, where they're getting cool gear and, playing for a bowl game that doesn't really matter, or they're playing for a national championship. And that's when
Right.
like we need to
Yeah.
take away every single distraction we can and make it feel as much like home, right, as possible. And
Right.
our normal preparation and our normal schedule, make it feel as normal as possible. So we put our best foot forward, when we play in that national championship on Friday night.
Yeah. Now you talk about your assistants. I know, obviously D3s you don't have nearly as much manpower as you would at some of the D1 levels. But I noticed, with your guys' staff, you look at the guys listed on the website. I see it on the sideline when you pop on the film or when you're going against you guys. You have a lot of extra help from former players. Not only that, yourself, Coach Studman, your OC, and your head coach, Coach Spencer, all alums, right? And I've noticed your guys' trend there is we're going to bring back North Central guys to be part of this coaching staff. How vital a role has that played, in your opinion, to the success that you guys have been able to build over these past, 5, 10 years? Because I got to imagine just having a bunch of alumni on staff just gives that extra bit of get up and go. We got something that we got to work for type of deal. And you've been at other schools, so you have at least a frame of reference as well. How important has that been in your opinion?
I think it's extremely vital. There's just a different level of investment. When you are coaching for the school that you played at, right? You think back to when you were a dumb 18-year-old and you made that transition and you grew as a man, and you grew as a football player, and now you've got the opportunity to do that for hundreds of young men moving forward. But when you see like that block NC on Saturdays, like it means a little bit more rather than just, hey, I'm going to go do my best, right? Because it's my job, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go do my best because of all the alums that are my best friends, right? For a coaching staff that, I've known for a decade plus, at being, a young coach. And we say just like there's blood in the bricks, right? Within the foundation, like we're fully invested in these young men in looking to advance the program instead of like you see so much within our industry at, hey, I want to advance my career for the next job.
Yeah.
We're looking to advance North Central College football,
right.
And that means a lot more. For each of us alums, instead of like you see so much in college football where guys are trying to do a great job, right, to enhance, their lives to get the next job.
Yeah.
So I think it's a different perspective, and it just means a lot more.
Yeah. And I got to imagine that helps with turnover rate and things like that from a coaching staff standpoint. Guys are not going to just leave for the first thing because, I mean, obviously, hey, winning helps everything, right? When you're at that level of success, that's obviously going to help. But I got to imagine if you got a bunch of guys that were alums, they don't want to just go just to go. They don't want to just fly the coop just to get out of there. They've got to they're going to wait for the right opportunity because they enjoy being at their alma mater so much.
Yeah. It's about people, and for me, like our head coach, I love him to death. Coach Studeman, like we're super close. The other guys, who my defensive line and corners coach, like I coached them when I was the defensive coordinator, so when you have relationships with that, within your walls of your program, and then you get to work with, hey, the higher ups, they value football here, right? They want to give us the resources. They want to give us the help to continue to be successful. And then the young men you get to work with, and then I've still got, family in the area. Like when life is about people and football programs are about people and it's about relationships. And when you have that, it's, that's all you need, in my book.
Yeah, for sure. So talking a little bit kind of career wise, I first got to know you when you were the DC at Benedictine. Came over there and we talked a little ball and, got to know each other back then. So kind of a funny way of you becoming the defensive coordinator there, right?
Yeah.
It was like a mid-season transition type of deal. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mid-season transition. Yeah.
How did you handle that? I mean, that's because it was your first time being a coordinator as well. So not only are you a first-time coordinator, you're a first-time coordinator mid-season and it's Monday and you're like, I got to call the game on Saturday. How do you handle that? What are the thoughts going through your mind and how did you get yourself through that first week and get settled in that situation? I mean, that's got to be a whole whirlwind of a scenario.
Yeah. Talking about throwing in the fire,
feet first, boom, gone.
It doesn't get any hotter than that.
No.
Yeah. So it was one of those things. I just looked at myself in the mirror and, at that point in time, like I was a secondary guy, I was a coverage guy. Yeah, I understood the third, second level run fits, but nothing up front. Like, nothing up front. I was 24 years old and just trying to be the best, secondary coach I could be.
Right. And
But
was this your first year after GAing?
Correct.
So, okay. So you're really
Correct.
figuring it out on
Really
the fly.
green. Yeah. Yeah, I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, Shane, you've got an opportunity, like no excuses, figure it out, or let this opportunity slip. And, so I just kind of went all in, didn't sleep more than like 2-3 hours for that first week. But I had a good support system, good defensive line coach, good linebackers coach that really helped me take what I wanted to do and fit it with what we were already doing, right? Because at that point, like, we're not going to change like what this coverage is called. We're not going to change like what this front is called. Like we've just got to move forward and really just focus on the details and got those kids pursuing to the football, their hair was on fire. And it's so funny how something as little as that, and putting a point of emphasis on that and charting pursuit during the week. It was a lot of fun, but I thought my heart was going to explode that first game, calling that game. And it was funny because we played Wisconsin Lutheran and they just put up, Lakeland was kind of running that league at the time.
Okay.
And Wisconsin Lutheran just put up 50 on Lakeland and the quarterback went for 250 passing and 200 rushing. And then we were playing Wisconsin Lutheran that next week. I was like, oh no. This kid looks like Lamar Jackson out there. And luckily our kids played really hard. I made some terrible calls and they figured it out and we won like 19-17 or something like that. But it was a great experience. I think as a young coach to just be thrown in the fire like that, it's just like it's sink or swim, man, and figure it out and tough through it. But again, I had a great staff, that helped me through it. And then kids that just believed in the basics and wanted to be great and wanted to win, and it all worked out.
Yeah. I got to imagine after an experience like that, you probably don't get rattled as easily as a defensive coordinator moving forward after that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you kind of first weekend, you're getting everything thrown at you. After that, it's like, oh, this is a lot easier than what that week was. It's probably the hardest week of your life as a DC.
Oh, now I have a off season to build a defense and make a playbook and talk with the D staff.
Yeah, for sure. So how would you say you've evolved philosophically, over time as a DC? I know you were heavy quarters coverage initially at Benedictine. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then, I know you've kind of changed over time, but philosophically, what's really changed for you as a DC from when you first started there to where you are now?
Yeah. So started off as a 4-2-5 at Benedictine and then actually made me a much better coach. In that second year as a DC, we transitioned to a 3-3 stack just because of our personnel, right? Mm-hmm. We had like a 215-pound 3 technique and I was like, this is what I believe in, but it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
So we got to a 3-3 stack and, ran a lot of pressures and fire zones with it. But that made me a lot better. And that's been a part of our package moving forward, right? Our sub package, our 3-3 stack stuff that we still do at North Central just looks a little bit different. But now predominantly a 4-2-5 the last 2 years, right? 84%. We're in that personnel. This last year we had to personnel a little bit more, actually getting a corner at that nickel spot, and then getting to a true 4-3, more against 12 personnel. From a coverage standpoint, we want to be really multiple, and that's something I talk about is we want to make sure any formation that we defend, we want to have a coverage variation no greater than 30%, right? So we always want to be making that quarterback think in today's spread game.
Mm-hmm.
Now within the run game, we want to keep it simple and we want to spill the football east and west to speed, right? And let our force players, right, attack it outside in and just keep it simple and play fast and get knockoff off the ball in the run game. But two things, like these are two things that I've been really thinking about. Tackling, we really struggled down the stretch with tackling. And I talked about in the biggest games, it's all about being brilliant at the basics. And, I heard a coach talking, about a month ago, and he said, 65 to 70% of plays finish in a tackle, where you see all these coaches like harping takeaways, 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 and 4% of plays, right, end in takeaways. So it's like, you think about like how you're using your time.
Yeah.
Right?
Your emphasis really has to change then if you're
Your
looking at it
emphasis
that way.
65 to 70%, right, as opposed to 4%. It's like, hey, those takeaways will happen as long as you're tackling well and you're hitting people hard and you're
Right.
affecting the quarterback. And another thing that, over the last few years, is explosive plays. I mean, as a former DC and former OC, like, if you can get chunk plays against the defense, right, life is easy.
Mm-hmm.
If you make offenses work, 10 plus play drives, right, and get into the red zone, right, where the field shrinks, like, your percentages, right, go way down as an offense the more you're on the
Right.
field.
Right.
And for us, right, over the last 2 seasons, in a drive, right, if we give up 0 explosives, 9% of the time they're scoring points. Right. If we give up 1 explosive this past year, 70% of the times those drives ended in points, and 58% of the time those ended in touchdowns. Right. So like, that's like,
Wow.
Yeah. When you think about like what people talk about that's most important, like if you say, hey, if we do this, we're going to give up 9% of the time, we're going to give up points. And if we do this, we're going to give up points 70% of the time. Like, that's super critical to me.
Yeah,
So
right.
to be able to have those stats to show the value and importance, I thought that was something pretty unique, within our end of season analysis.
Yeah, for sure. So I'd say it's safe to say in your time, you're going to spend your time on scheme and making sure that you're keeping up to date, putting your players in the best position, but it still just comes down. Are you spending more time on the basic fundamentals than you did when you first got into DCing, or would you say it's still pretty even, or, how do you balance that?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, this year I kind of had to pull myself back. We ended up having some injuries, in the playoffs, and we were like putting in new schemes and doing a whole bunch of stuff. And I was focused on scheme, focus on scheme, focus on scheme. And then I was like, well, we're not tackling very well. We're not affecting the quarterback, with our 4-man rush. So like, then we had to get back to the basics. And that's really what I'm focused on this spring. The scheme we've got enough stuff where we can figure it out. But if you're not winning one-on-ones with block destruction, man coverage, and tackling, doesn't matter how cool your scheme is or,
right.
or how versatile
No
you
doubt.
are or how many times
Right.
you're running the coverage. So
No doubt.
that's getting back to the basics.
Gotcha. So kind of wrapping up here, I always like to ask guys, we call it forward progress for a reason. What for you, you've been at North Central now for 6 overall years, 5 seasons, obviously accomplished some really great things. So obviously for you, you're not just going to leave, right? I mean, you're in a really good spot, and I know you love where you're at. It's evident in the way you speak of North Central and what you guys are doing there. But in your eyes, what's the next step for you? What's forward progress for you look like over the next 5 years? Do you want to be a head coach? Do you want to get up to a higher level? What do you feel is the next best move for you as you move forward in your career?
Yeah, I think just continuing to be the best defensive coordinator I can be. And in 2022, I was a lot better than I was in 2023. So it's getting back to that. And I love it at North Central. And, I'd like to be a head coach someday, but, I'm not there yet. And, one of the things when I was a younger coach in my early 20s, I was just like, hey, I want to be at this level in this position at this age. And once I kind of put that on the wayside and I just, be where your feet are, right?
Yeah.
And focused on that and being the best at what I'm currently doing, the more I started to see, hey, myself improve and my units get better.
Yeah.
And that's something that I tell young coaches all the time. So like, I'm not about that, like, hey, 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road. I'm about like, let's get after it today.
Yeah,
And,
for sure.
Let's put ourselves in a position to get back to the Stag Bowl next season.
Yeah, no doubt. No, that's I think every young coach thinks that. You put that schedule like, oh, I want to be a Division I guy by this point, and then you go through it and you realize, you know what? The only thing that's up to me is me being where I am and being the best at wherever I'm currently at. Bloom where you're planted, like they say,
Amen.
and
Yep.
eventually things will take care of themselves if you do a good job and you put the work in. So,
Absolutely.
well, awesome, man. Thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time. It was good seeing you and talking to you. So thanks again for jumping on, and
No,
we'll
this is
make sure
great.
to hopefully get you back on down the road. Hopefully after another Stag Bowl win.
Hell yeah. Really,
Yeah,
really appreciate it, Nubis. It was awesome catching up. And you know, I saw the first one ever you did this 2 weeks ago with Dan
yeah,
Day. And
yeah.
man, that made my day seeing you and him,
Yeah,
chatting
yep,
it up. And I was like,
yeah.
anytime you want me on, I'm on, man.
Awesome. I appreciate it, man. It was good talking with you.
All right, man.
All right, we'll see you.